In our first video, we covered the faith of the Agionists, and though I said I was going to do these in alphabetical order, I was lying. And today we're going to be covering life paths, the religion of the Marchers, or the people of Chevalie, the large realm that sits to the west of Old Adversaria, in the region of Calathipsomi and just south of the Lichdoms, home of the dead magi who have locked their souls within their bodies by willingly dying and rising again as seemingly immortal entities of great power. Though much can be said about the place, Chevalie is perhaps best known for its wide array of peoples, merchants, mercenaries, and adventurers alike, but perhaps most of all, its anti-magic, which not only surrounds their land by way of a mysterious engine that produces a magic-diffusing field, but is also an umbrella term for any warrior who has dedicated themselves to fighting magic practitioners or beasts. Though some consider the art a magic in and of itself, anti-magic is in reality more of a martial arts based around quickly disabling magic users or magical beings with speed and erratic movements, or at a distance with marksmanship such as a bow or crossbow. More recently, the use of powerful and dangerous alchemical concoctions has been used to disable or blind the magic users, but this seems to be a newer practice. Obviously, there's plenty more to say about these peoples, but this summary will have to suffice for now because we are talking about their faith, not their culture, which, though broken up into 10 different subcategories, fall under the life path umbrella. But before I go on, I ask you to keep in mind that for the following section, there's a lot of lore about this faith to fit into just a few minutes, and I in no way can cover all of it. If you wish to know more, you can always explore the faith in-game, as these videos are primarily meant to be a primer of sorts for the faiths themselves, not a comprehensive discussion on them. While I of course do my best to describe as much as I can, I will inevitably leave something out for either the sake of narrative or because I just don't think I can fit it into the video reasonably. Life path is a religion which believes in a clockmaker's universe, where everything operates as a perfectly constructed machine, but can only do so if its mechanisms, i.e. people, fulfill their assigned roles. These roles, as defined by the greatest of wayfathers, Sir Reynos, are known as ways, which, when followed, allow for harmony to flourish on Aeras. Chaos is born when one rejects these ways and strays from the life path. Because of its focus on harmony in the physical realm, life path is one of the few faiths which cares less about an afterlife and more about one's journey and respective purpose in the here and now. Life path as a faith is firmly controlled by the Conclave of Ras, though outside of religion they don't really have much political sway, but we'll get to why. They oversee the orthodoxy as a result of the War of the Heretical Princes, or heresies, a religious conflict which stemmed from literal centuries of tight clerical control of Chevalie, where for a long portion of Chevalie's history, the clergy had equal or higher authority to the realm's secular lords. In essence, the lords often wished to force their populace to choose a specific life path, giving them authority over the right of choice, which is important to their faith, where the clergy felt they had the right over this choice in order to control not only the common folk but also the lords. This caused obvious conflicts, but came to a head in 999 IS, when a preacher named Urso Becledevre declared new interpretations of the life paths and began preaching for changes to the orthodoxy, which spread like wildfire throughout the realm and caused several secular dukes to declare themselves free of the Conclave of Ras and reclaim the right of choice for themselves. Faiths began sprouting up all over Chevalie, which secular lords used to secure their rule. Though it took some time for the Conclave to respond properly to this crisis, in 1011 IS the Council of Aix declared Urso and any similar sects or preachers as heretics, and that those who wished to change the life path orthodoxy would and should be punished with death. For 40 years the heretical groups fought with the Ras and its allies across Chevalie. Though in the end the Conclave would maintain control of the orthodoxy, the war had expended virtually all influence and wealth they had in doing so, while the secular lords they pulled troops and influence from swallowed as much power and land from them as possible. Though in the end, a large reason for why the Ras won was because of their more conservative stance on the nobility and peasantry alike, basically a call for stability and peace in the realm versus some of the other life path sects like the Saints' March calling for the death of basically every magi and noble, so it's pretty easy to see why people supported them. Regardless, when the agreement of Ras was signed, an agreement which utterly decimated and purged most of the heretically deemed life path faiths and their followers, a move which many to this day despise, the grasp the Conclave had over Chevalie politics and rule effectively ended, and today they exist largely as another fiefdom within the realm, though this is not to say as a religious practice, as they maintain total control over that. But in a land now controlled solely by feudal lords not beholden to the Conclave, this sort of thing does not really matter as much, because even something as simple as declaring a lord a heretic would require the Conclave to beg another feudal lord to help them go after them. They could still bully peasants though, so good for them I guess. I risk making this video too overlong if we expand on this topic too much from here, so we have our overview on what life path is and how it got to where it is now. now. We could talk about the subfaiths themselves, but before that we should probably cover each of the 13 ways or life paths, as they are called interchangeably, and discuss what the adherence of those entails, starting with the Way of Coins. The Way of Coins is the path of merchants, wealthy commoners, and many mercenaries with a focus on amassing wealth, accounting, and bartering. It remains a well-honored tradition among all walks of life, though the complexity of its concepts are often seen as a high barrier for success. 2. The Way of Crowns is the path of the nobility, guild leaders, and village elders. Focusing on leadership in all forms, those who follow the path must learn how to manage large groups of people, finances, and organizations. Often called the path of royals, most nobles are followers of this path, whether they choose to or after pressure from their family. 3. The Way of Crows is the path of spies, courtiers, and magi. While a marcher magi is unusual, legends say that once all their people held magic, and all walk the path of crows. Followers of the path learn how to gather and hide secrets, how to move unnoticed, and how to manipulate others. While associated with criminals and deviants, the path emphasizes on how to best keep a secret and prevent the spying of others just as much as it does the opposite. In the nobility, especially where the courts have become increasingly esoteric in function and form, the path of crows is seen with a high level of respect, if at an arm's distance. The Way of Family is the path of matriarchs, patriarchs, and diplomats. Those who follow the Way of Family dedicate themselves to the knowledge of how to handle interpersonal relationships and how to best produce and raise children. It is popular among the peasantry and nobility hailing from large families. The Way of Harvest is the path of farmers, guildsmen, and often those who organize them, focusing on practical pursuits such as farming and smithing, or of basic language skills like reading and writing. While it used to be common among all walks of life, the increasing distance between the nobility and the peasantry have led it to being seen as a lesser path to many nobles. Due to this, despite its many useful tenets, it is generally shunned by the nobility, who see it as a commoner's lot. 6. The Way of Justice is the path of those who wish to make wrongs right and see justice done. The rarest path, it is practically unheard of due to its odd tenets and extremely tenuous usefulness. Often it is a struggle to even find a wayfather to perform the ceremony. Nonetheless, it is possibly the most honored of all paths, being the path purportedly founded by Sir Ranos himself and his followers when he freed the people of Chevalie from slavery long ago. The Way of Knowledge is the path of erudites, scholars, and theologians. Focusing on advanced literacy, the writing and creation of art and literature, and the accumulation of wisdom, it is a respected, if uncommon, pursuit that has given Chevalie culture nearly all of its great works. The path of nullification is the path of the anti-magic orders, the youngest of the paths. It is also most highly regarded of those commonly seen in Chevalie. Followers of the path often follow a unique path of learning in comparison to the other ways. Instead of learning at their own pace with a local wayfather, these followers instead often journey out to one of the many chapter houses of the anti-magic orders to learn the craft of their wayfather brothers. As social mobility has faded from public life, many see a life with the chapters where they can earn glory and wealth for their kin is a preferable alternative to serfdom, despite the fact that, contrary to heraldic tales, the vast majority of those who follow it will find no glory, instead dying in one of the thousands of lich raids or incinerated by magical power. The tales only tell of those who make it, and few enough are still alive to convince anyone of these inaccuracies. The Way of Shepherds is the path of modesty for those who seek peace and contentment in life. It is by the shepherd's hand that the land and those who live upon it flourish. The Way of Stars. The Way of Stars follows the path which guide magi, philosophers, priests, and sailors alike. The mysteries of the universe are vast, and it takes a keen mind to chart a way through them. 11. The Way of Swords is the path of warriors, mercenaries, and those wishing to dedicate themselves to the protection of their homes. One of the most common of the paths, those who follow the Way of Swords mean dedicating their lives to physical strength, knowledge of tactics, and when and how a battle should be fought. The Way of the Hunt is the path of adventurers, huntsmen, and waymakers for those who wish to travel or challenge the world. And finally, the Way of the Sword, not the Way of Swords, the Way of the Sword, which guides warriors, knights, aristocrats, and blacksmiths. The metal that makes the blade is just as crucial as the strength and cunning that swings it. Now, we've covered all the life paths that are in the game so far, but I want to stress that not all of these are available to every sect. The reason there's so many of them, and actually some of them were kind of left out because there's not a whole lot of information about them other than basic little text, is because each sect of the life path has their own ways, which is one of the things that makes them unique and one of the things they disagree on. We'll obviously go over that in a second. But with that out of the way, I can finally discuss the 10 sub-faiths which fall under the life path umbrella, starting with Artilism. Keep in mind that all but the Conclave of Ras basically don't exist by the time of the game's start. They've either existed at one point or will exist later on in the development or in different bookmarks, but as of right now, Ras has a pretty firm hold over the realm. There are a couple of the other ones on here, which we'll talk about briefly, but just wanted to let you know that if you were looking to play as some of these, they might not exist. Anyway, the Conclave has 136 counties, and the second largest active faith, Inner Path and Coast Path, have 3. So I just wanted to emphasize that yes, the Conclave of Ras is the orthodoxy in the most severe way. Now, in the first video, I talked about holy sites as they came up for each sub-faith, but there's only one faith in this group that has holy sites unique from the others, So for the sake of brevity, I'll describe those in one go when we get to them and skip for the rest until we get to something different, if that makes sense. Anyway, the holy sites of most of the paths are Champion's Stand, the site of the champion way saint of the Path of Justice, who died fighting at the Arch-Lich Silas Starvo, ending the Red River War. 2, the Raucourt Conclave, which is basically just where the conclave meets and lives. We'll talk about that a little more when we get to their section. Vlasilic's Grave, which is the grave of an Arch-Lich. I couldn't find a whole lot about this one, but I'm pretty sure the lore primer talks about him briefly. And finally, the Crucible, which is a massive citadel which sits as the hub of a series of walls and fortresses which defend Chevalie's northern borders from the Lichdoms. They are guarded by the anti-magic orders. And with those out of the way, those are being the holy sites once again, we're going to finally jump into Artilism and then go on from there. Remember, there are 10 subsects of the life path faith, so this is going to take a second, but I hope that you enjoy. Number 1, Artilism, or Arturists, which come from the Chevalian word for burning, see the idolatizing of any spiritual entity, be it a god or even the way saints, as the source of all magic, and by extension, liches, which is a bit of a jump, but whatever. This group was formed during the War of the Heretical Princes, that's why, by a figure known as the Black Monk, who burned down dozens of churches and even more religious artifacts which could be misconstrued as idolatrous. It was adopted by various warlords and peasants at the time, who in turn used the faith as a pretext for seizing Raucourt lands and caused much of the Conclave's power in northern Chevalie to be erased as a result. Before I discuss their unique paths, I should probably also discuss that most of the sects also have things called lay clergy and then are also monastic. So lay clergy are basically any devoted follower is more than capable of understanding, following, and preaching the doctrine of this faith. And monasticism is the pleasure of fine food and drink only served to distract us from the service to the divine. Isolating ourselves in remote monasteries is the best way to avoid these temptations. Anyway, Arturism has a unique one from some of the other paths called mendicant preachers. Our missionaries travel far and wide with nothing but the clothes they wear on their back. They live off the generosity of those they visit and share the knowledge of the truth faith in return. They also have aniconism. The worship of graven images has blinded far too many to the divine truth. We cast all icons out of our holy places so that our faithful may not fall into that trap, which is what I mentioned when they said they were burning idolatrous imagery. They still have life path as well, which I don't need to explain life path. It's just the worship of life path that you choose a path as you grow up when you reach the age of 16. Our second life path is named after that Urso guy. Becledianism was formed by the heretical month Urso during the War of the Heretical Princes. It deems that one's life path should be chosen at birth by a wayfather or a priest of the life path after consulting with the stars, and not instead by the individual. Though it was declared an arch heresy, it has continued in the decades since due to its relatively small numbers of differences, major as they may be from the baseline life path orthodoxy. So this could basically be like a hidden sect if that was a thing that really existed in CK3 at the moment. They believe in 2 unique things. Astrology, the night sky, is our window into the realm of the divine. The great secrets and mysteries of the world are written there, open for all to learn if they know where to look. Basically where they find out which path you should pick. And sacred childbirth. The bathhouses where mothers give birth must be cleansed and prepared with the proper rituals in order to encourage the divine to grant us their blessing during childbirth. They also worship the life path, although obviously theirs is a little differently. And they hold the virtues of pregnancy, diligence, ambition, and compassion as virtues. I know I didn't say the ones for Arturism, but real quick, those are temperance, diligence, ambition, and compassion. Our third sect is Coast Path, which is a loose gathering of faiths native to the Conjugmanor coast and southeast Chevalie. This fusion of beliefs in oceanic and river-based deities with the life paths remained relatively unbothered until 772 IS, when it was purged by Conan Brundin. I don't know if that's how you say his name, during his attempt to centralize Chevalier practices and beliefs. Though in the years since, Chevalians have taken it upon themselves to root out and purge non-life path adhering faiths in the realm, pockets of the Coast Path remain. And uniquely to the Coast Path, they worship the sanctity of nature, which means the natural world is the creation of the divine and we are merely guests in it. We must respect and honor each tree, every animal, and even the ground itself. Sort of a branching between, I guess, what you would call pagan beliefs and then the more serious grounded life path belief system. They also value diligence, ambition, compassion, and hunting because of that. They also have pastoral isolation, but I've talked about that in another video. Basically, they want to be left alone, they want to farm. So I didn't really feel like I needed to explain that one, but there you go. The next one up is the Conclave of Gready, which I think this one is really funny. They're essentially the anti-Conclave of Raucourt, hailing from the western Chevalier city of Petit-Gready, which is historically isolationist and violently independent. The Conclave of Gready generally pops up when the Conclave of Raucourt attempts to enforce any orthodoxy on the Gready, to then go back to sleep like an angry religious orthodox hating giant when it effectively blocks this from happening. Today they don't exist, but this is what happened during the War of the Heretical Princes until they finally begrudgingly accepted that they would convert back. They have communal identity, they have monasticism, and they have life path. Communal identity basically just meaning that they identify strongly with one another. They are temperate, diligent, ambitious, and compassionate, or they at least try to be. The Conclave of Ocasia founded with the codification of the Eastern Paths, which is a mixture of Chevalie myth and the life path. This one is not in the game yet. This is meant to happen after the Right Wars, which follows Senwar's death. This conclave preaches the existence of 4 distinct life paths, hence why there are different ones that I mentioned that you won't notice for some of the other ones: the path of the hunt, the sword, the shepherd, and the stars. Though it was initially accepted, it was deemed arch heresy after the entreatment of Ventel, which hasn't happened, and it broke ties with Northern life path faiths thereafter. This life path forms as a result of the Right Wars. None of this has happened yet, of course, because Senwar is still alive at the 1254 start, but this will happen later on, presumably in the 1298 or whenever he happens to die in your own game. They worship quite a few unique things because they are virtually different in every way. This is the one that has different holy sites. They have monasticism, life paths, and the Chevalie hunt, which means that they value hunting as well as all the other normal conclave stuff. But they also have unique holy sites. So they have Vermeer, they have Stymphanius, they have Enemy City, and they have Dobrium, which I'm pretty sure I said the last one wrong, but regardless, if you look at the map, you'll notice that a lot of these are in former Adversarian territory. One of them specifically being the capital, Oraspol, is one of their holy sites, which is interesting to me. This is a very cool one. I like that they've sort of integrated the movement of the Chevalie, and then with the integration of this sort of faith, and then the combination of it, I think it's really cool. At 6, we finally come to the Conclave of Ras, which is the orthodoxy, of course. They deem that at 16, every marcher must choose a path or have one forced on them by their parent or lord, which will dictate the role they play in marcher society and the wider world for the rest of their lives. Once in a path, they are guided in its instruction by waymaster, anti-magier, or experts in their respective path. Under this tutelage, initiates also learn about the way saints, people of great religious importance who guide the faithful down their respective paths. They govern the orthodox priesthood from the Conclave de Ras, the place all way fathers are confirmed, where way saints are named, and where the wisest among its priesthood reside to teach and discuss the life paths. It is described as a hallowed place where heroes have learned and gained wisdom, but whose doors are rarely open to strangers. Considering it is the orthodoxy itself, again, this is the largest life path. So they are unique for a couple reasons. Obviously, they're the biggest one, but they're also the only one that's theocratic, which means that only sanctioned way leaders can be entrusted with upholding our faith's doctrines and by extension with managing and caring for our sacred places. I know I said earlier that most of them were lay clergy, but I should have corrected. I guess I'm correcting that now. The conclave is not. Since they're the biggest one, I guess that is the more common one. They believe in communal identity, monasticism, and the life path. They value temperance, diligence, ambition, and compassion. Daralianism, formed by a noblewoman turned preacher Catherine den Darl. They preached in the tripath that only the 3 paths of war, peace, and death were true. Darl preached way leaders, or the people who would guide the principles of war, peace, and death paths, should rule the Chevalie people as a theocratic class. This quickly gained popularity, with many lords and peasants converting during the War of the Heretical Princes, when she further expanded her belief, saying that anyone could be a way leader, not just members of the priesthood, giving lords and peasants alike obvious opportunity to acquire more power. They believe in communal identity, monasticism, the life path, temperance, diligence, ambition, and compassion. This one's actually really close to all the other ones. It's basically just the only main difference is that anybody can become a way leader, which of course is the worst of heresies, because could you imagine? The next one we have is another pretty unique one. This is the 4 steps of salvation. They have the same holy sites, which is strange, but they're pretty brutal. Formed in the 9th century by Chevalier aristocrat Thiscul den Vesco, the Salvationists believe in the 4 true paths, the way of pain, of blood, of dread, and of fear, proclaiming that its followers must do everything from ritual cannibalism to widespread murder and torture of anyone outside the faith, regardless of station, age, or gender. Yikes. After a string of brutal murders in petty Gizuredi, which saw a brief spread of the practice to adjoining cities, an inquisitional force of over a dozen knightly orders purged the practitioners, with Thiscul and his family being publicly executed. Today, the word Thiscul is considered a most grievous curse in Chevalian society. So they believe in, as you can see, a lot. It's much different than the other ones. They believe in diligence, ambition, sadisticism, and cannibalism, with the exaltation of pain, pursuit of power, and ritual cannibalism being their 3 core tenets. Exaltation of pain is basically that pain is the universal emotion, violence the universal language. To bestow pain upon another is to give them blessings. To receive another's pain is to receive grace. Pursuit of power is what is and is not righteous is transient. Defined by those who currently hold power, this means that the pursuit of power is the only truly righteous cause. And ritual cannibalism, I'm sure you can guess, they eat people because they think it's holy. There you go. Pretty messed up. This one's obviously not around. I don't know why you would want to bring this one back, but maybe you're a little sadist and you're kind of crazy and you think it'd be fun. Number 9 is the inner path, which is a bit of a vague descriptor of a life path faith, which attempts to bring together the mountain cultures of the Galacatars and the life path faith. This is in the upper northwest of the map. While not terribly popular outside of this region, it remains popular within. Not much to say about this one, really. They have a couple different things. They have a Gallieni syncretism. Much like the Gallieni, we believe that the fate of mankind mankind is to a certain extent predetermined, and they also believe in pastoral isolation, with their values primarily being diligence, ambition, contentment, and compassion, which is interesting, which means they basically don't want to leave their mountains. So they're pretty much chilling up there. They don't try to reach too far out of their life. This is a very chill life path. And the final life path, which is not chill whatsoever, is Saints March, founded by anti-magi turned prophet Wildermuth den Vas Saisons. This was a highly militaristic faith which held the way of nullification and of swords above all others, believing that peace could only exist when all magi, and in some cases nobility, were dead. Though initially popular, it crumbled following the War of the Noose, a small war that happened during the War of the Heretical Princes, when a speech by Wildermuth caused the rampant assault of foreigners and theft of magi goods across Chevalie. In the end, when it was found that Wildermuth was not even a follower of the Way of Nullification, but instead of the Way of Harvests, he was stoned to death by his followers and the movement collapsed. So, sort of a quick and brutal end. They believe in unrelenting faith, which we actually talked about in our Agionis video. They are also warmongers, which means they think that faith and war go hand in hand. One who refuses to fight in the name of the divine cannot be called a true believer. And then, of course, the life path. They value diligence, ambition, and I guess compassion, which doesn't seem right considering they want to murder everybody. But hey, I mean, compassion comes in all forms, right? But at long last, we have reached the end of this video. My voice is grateful because that was a doozy. It got a little messy there at the beginning of our sect discussion, but I think we turned it around there in the end. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to organize these videos, so as I get better and as I improve, I hope that you guys, can be a little gentle on me. It's a lot to organize all these faiths into one cohesive unit while also trying to discuss the lore, so I appreciate your patience. I hope you found this video useful and perhaps you find your own path to follow in the lands of Chevalie. Call me an orthodox sim, but I leave that up to you. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I want to thank the devs of Godherja for making this wonderful world and for allowing me to present it to you in this way. I did not consult them once again on this one. I did kind of, at some parts, ask some clarifying questions, but I felt pretty confident in this one considering the faiths. They're a little bit looser and you can sort of discuss them with a little less stringent nature, also considering there's only one of these in the game, so a lot of what I say could be wrong and it wouldn't matter as much. If you like this sort of content, again, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, as it helps me and YouTube know that you like this video and you'd like to see more of it. If you like my content, you can consider becoming a channel member. I have 2 membership tiers. You can see our members right here. I want to appreciate and thank everybody who is already a member. You guys are super important to me, and your presence here on the channel means a lot. This has been another Godherja video, this time covering the life paths. I don't know which one I'm going to do next. I've thought about maybe doing ritualism. I'm already planning on covering wardenism within more videos centered around the war in heaven, so I don't know if I'll do a wardenism specific video, which might upset people. If you want me to, I can, but I feel like most of its tenets and most of its information will come through in that video anyway, so I don't know if that's necessary, but if you want me to, I can obviously make a wardenism video. So I thought about maybe doing ritualism or discussing the Aversarian faiths, which there's a lot of those as well, and that would be a big one to get out of the way. But we'll see what I decide to do. That'll come out sometime in March, so I'm not too worried about it right now. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'm Soul. This has been the Life Path Faiths of Aeras video, and I will happily see you in the next one.